you all able to hear me and see me properly? More importantly, hear me properly. The audio video okay? All right. Great. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. Right. Yes, Mandeep, I have received your email. You sent it to me 2 days ago. I received it. Okay. All right. Okay. Welcome to What a Week. This is the weekly current affairs review from 11th to the 17th of May 2020. This is my name, this is my email, this is my Telegram channel. For those of you who are looking for taking up a couple of courses, this is the code that you can use. Okay, now let's see. What are we going to do? When we discuss What a Week today, tomorrow, and subsequently, this has given us a brilliant opportunity, kind of a blessing in disguise, to consolidate our notes in one place with regards to sectors. So the focus of the class that will happen today will essentially be to put things on a note perspective for the pre as well as the mains. We would largely be looking at the following things. First, of course, across the news, the Atmanirbhar package. Second, the Supreme Court judgment on the NEET exam and its applicability to minority institutions. Third, the two articles which were there last week on the relevance of the Rajya Sabha, which was written by Venkaiah Naidu. An editorial on the constitutionality of the Disaster Management Act, which was written by Prashant Bhushan. A very, very sharp article. One may not have to agree with what it has been written, but a good article nonetheless. And an article last week on how would the world look like from a foreign policy perspective after COVID-19. Okay? We'll start with this, and we're going to spend a class or two on this. Okay? Let's understand this. Nikhil, just refresh in case there's a problem, you can come back. So let's understand how we're going to approach this for 2020, for 2021. How do you put it all together? Okay, right? So let's see. If I just put this slide before you and I tell you that the government has looked at certain measures plus reforms or changes in the following areas. Okay? You would call it the budget. And that's essentially what Atmanirbhar package is. The Atmanirbhar package is in one way budget 2.0. Okay? It's essentially some key changes in key sectors. Some of those might be related to COVID and some of those might not be related to COVID. But these are larger changes. Okay? All right? And that's the idea. Let's understand this. Which means if this is like the budget, it should be treated like the budget. Right? I understand that a lot of you would have spent your last week trying to go through the figures, trying to go through the percentages, trying to understand, oh, there is so much data coming in. But you must understand, a larger chunk of what is being done are essentially announcements. These are announcements for changes that will happen. Some of those might be increasing the amount of money that we are paying for a scheme. Some of it would be increasing the number of people, the beneficiaries that are covered in a scheme. Some of them would be increasing the coverage area of a scheme. Some of it would essentially be allocating money to an entirely new sector. Some of it could be changing certain policy decisions of a sector. But at the end of it all, please understand this. This is just a bunch of policy decisions, which means if this is a bunch of policy decisions, one must make sure that you use this opportunity, okay, to ensure that you're able to create a 1 or 2 page consolidated note on the background sectors, keeping in queue as to what has happened. Clear on this? Okay. Understood this? Simple enough, right? Okay. And that's exactly what we're going to do. Now, the rules of the class remain the same. And the rules of the class are very simple. All questions in the question box strictly. The comment box is only for you to report that there is, let us say, a tech issue that you're facing, or you're responding to something that I've asked you to respond. Apart from that, please leave the comment box. Otherwise, we break the flow of the class. This is very, very important. Okay? All right. Let's start. So what we're going to do is, I'm going to pick up a couple of sectors, show you how it is done, give you the sources that you can use to frame your consolidated notes, and then keep these notes as a stencil for the entire year to keep adding things down. The point of today's class is also going to teach you a standard answer structure which will cover relevant information for the pre as well as the mains across all the 3 types of questions. All social sector questions are answered in a way, all policy questions are answered in a way, all sectors are answered in a way, all specific schemes are answered in a very, very specific way. And you will learn that through the bunch of the classes that I'm going to take on this over a period of time. Now, I'd like to talk to you about something far more controversial in today's class. Now, this controversy you may or may not particularly agree with, but it is something that sort of works for me. I have done this for the number of years that I've been teaching. I thought I will share this with you. Okay? Just give me a minute and just understand this. This larger debate, this larger discussion on how the hell does one consolidate current affairs. Now, you may do what I do. You may decide to still stick to your own principles. It's completely fine. I'm just stating a convenient way to do this. So this is what I do. I do current affairs on a Monday to Sunday basis. I will glance through the newspapers every day, probably watch a daily news analysis here or there in case it's needed, and I will keep a track of the major issues that have been highlighted through Monday and Sunday. Because what happens is, for example, let us say MSME reforms were announced earlier this week. Then suddenly when I read about MSME on the day on which it was announced, what will happen is I will go berserk. I will read in 10 different places. I will end up going through 10 different random Google searches. I will simply wait. Because what happens is, on a Sunday, at an FAQ column in the Hindu, they will give me what is right and what is wrong as far as MSME is concerned. Do you understand what I did? So I usually keep my Saturday and Sunday to consolidate the news for the week. Because what happens is, the questions or the doubts or the problems I would have on a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday automatically get solved through the week by Saturday or Sunday. So I'm able to consolidate things in one place. I'm able to get the why, when, what, where, what is the problem, what can be done in a better way. Yes? Now, You may want to do this, you may not want to do this, but it just makes my life easy. So I thought I'll share this with you. Because the point of the class here is not only to overburden you, is not to overburden you with information, is to make you self-sufficient. So that after a month or two, when we still keep doing these classes, you will automatically tell me that these are the issues of the week and this is how we've gone into it and these are the changes that we've added to the process. Yes? Clear? Again, does this make sense? Yes? Right? Yeah. All right. Okay. Good. So just try to do this. It might just help. I'll keep on consolidating it with you. Okay? शुरू करते हैं. So I'm going to discuss coal, minerals, defense and aviation today largely. And then tomorrow I'll cover the rest, because once you understand this part today, it'll be very easy for you to put all of the things together. So what will happen is there's a lot of work you have to do. Because when you're preparing for the current affairs of last week, and when you spend this entire week figuring this out, right, what will end up happening is by the end of this week, you will have ready-made notes available on everything here. That's the point of class today. Clear? Understood this? Yeah? All right. So let's start. We start with the first sector, coal. Okay? Let's first discuss what are the important changes that they've spoken about with respect to coal. What are the important changes that they've spoken about with respect to coal? Okay? So let's start. I've divided them into one second. Let me answer this. Ritika, I understand that you're upset, but you must also understand I get more than 300 emails every day, and I try my level best to reply to at least 50 every day. Put your question in the email box. I'm sorry if the time has taken a little bit longer, but I will reply. But there is no need to get upset. There's no need to get entitled. I will make sure that I will get back to your email. You don't have to ask me a question 10 times for me to answer this, okay? I'm sorry, but be a little more patient. Thanks. All right? And this is the comment forum is not for you to vent out. Put it in the question box. We'll get back to you, okay? Thanks. Right. So what I've done is we're going to discuss some key important changes that have been announced. And therefore, what will end up happening is we'll look at them in some broad headings. Okay. So let us see. First, commercial mining. Second, diversified opportunities. And third, ease of doing business. All right. Now, where have I picked this up? I'm going to give you a very good and a very simple trick. If you're free this week, just go to PIB's website. And when you go to PIB's website, open press releases, search for Ministry of Finance, and look at the specific dates 17th, 16th, 15th, 14th, 13th. Okay? On each of these dates, all right, you will see that the presentations that the minister used are directly uploaded. Now, I must tell you, the presentations are not very good, but they give you enough summary points for you to add up and change. So what I've done is I've picked these points up directly from those presentations to give you a little bit of context. So you can all download those presentations that are available on PDF and you can keep a track on it. Clear on this? Okay. So let's see how this works. We first talk about commercial mining, which is essentially mining for private purposes. Okay. We're now going to be looking at first what is called a revenue sharing mechanism. Okay, we're going to be looking at something called a revenue sharing mechanism. Right? Second, any party can bid for a coal block and sell the same in the open market. Third, no eligibility conditions and only upfront payment are required with a ceiling for the entry of new players. Okay. Fourth, partially explored box to also be auctioned, and the private sector can play a role in the exploration of coal blocks. So much has been given. Now, how do you use this for the exam? You convert all of this into simple points, which is entry slash conditions of the private sector. Now, I do not need you to know the data, the number of coal blocks, the details of the methods that are used, because you will be answering this in a larger 150, 250 word answer on what can we do to make the coal sector better. So even if you convert all of this into maximum 1 to 3 points, which would be first, a better arrangement between the government and the private sector. We used to previously use something called a rupee per ton. It's like an open tender kind of a setup where multiple companies applied for a mining tender, and they applied with their quotes. They said, we're going to charge you, we're going to give you as the government, let us say, 1,000 rupees per ton. Company B says 1,500 rupees per ton. Company C says 2,000 rupees per ton. Okay, all of those things. Now, the government picks up the company which offers them the largest rupee per ton. Now, this is counterproductive for both the people. First, if the demand for coal skyrockets and coal becomes expensive, and the company which has been mining coal is able to sell the coal at a very high price, eventually they're able to make a larger chunk of profits, and the government loses out. So that's the first. The second problem is, if there is rarely though, if there is a sharp decline in the demand for coal and the prices decline very badly, in that case, the private sector might also be caught up in a mess. Clear? So the idea is to change the revenue share, is to change the method of sharing. And second, all of these points, all of points, this, and this, second, third, fourth, and fifth point is essentially allowing for private players to explore and mine more openly. That's it. Allowing private players to explore and mine more openly. That's all that it says. Not a word more, not a word less. Now, it has technical meanings that, for example, back in the day, you needed to have some prior experience in mining and all of those things. Those are not required. Now, I can understand that a lot of you might have some questions here. Keep a hold of this, because we've recently had the Mining Amendment Act, which was passed, and it talks about these conditions, and I'm going to talk about it, so don't worry about it. Clear on this? Simple enough? That's all. Then you look at the second heading that they use, diversified opportunities. Now, don't worry, we'll discuss this. I'll put it all in a structure for you, so don't worry. What are we talking about? We're talking about coal gasification and liquefaction, which will be incentivized through the revenue share, which essentially means any company who wants to get into gasification and liquefaction of coal will be given a certain amount of higher revenue share. Why? Because first, these are environmentally more sustainable, and second, it also helps India smoothly transition into a gas-based economy. So what you can always do is, you can always, if you've already done your GS course, you can go back and quickly revise what coal gasification and liquefaction is, or you can just take a note of it, wait for geography to be done for you, or whenever you decide to pick up geography on your own, and just in one line, write the meaning of gasification and liquefaction. Clear on this? And the government plans to pump in about 50,000 crores for infrastructure. So infrastructure would essentially mean better coal processing units, better engagement systems, better market delivery systems, the entire ecosystem. Okay? You don't have to worry about where in infrastructure are they going to spend. Okay? Third, they talk about coal methane bed extraction rights, which is coal bed methane extraction rights, which will be auctioned from Coal India Limited, which is, of course, a PSU. And, of course, there's a larger policy on PSUs that they have announced, that they will announce a policy on PSUs, and we'll talk about it when I come to PSUs. Okay, so that's essentially extraction right, which were only with Coal India Limited, would now also be given to other players for more expansion of the business, right? And to have more people, to have more number of players in the coal sector, they want to have a simplification of a mining plan, which means it's like a builder who has to build a complex. Nowadays, has to submit their building plans on RERA. Right? These plans are available. These are all electronically sanctioned, and the idea is to create a little bit of transparency. This will automatically mean that if there's a mining company who wants to mine on a specific coal block, they can upload their mining plan. It's done through a simple portal. They're going to do this, which will essentially make sure that there are no bureaucratic hurdles. There are no leakages where officials may ask for corruption, which might essentially disrupt the entire ecosystem. Okay, and second, allow for automatic 40% increase in annual production, which means when you do this, it will automatically mean, so tomorrow, let us say, company X says, I'm going to mine about 100 tons. Okay, but let us say while mining, the company is able to look at better technology, better processes, and says, okay, I might actually be able to mine 140 tons. That's a 40% increase, right? 200 tons. So that is also possible. You will give them that kind of a bracket. Take it. Now, ye sab bola hai. Now the bigger question is, how much of this is relevant for the exam, and how do I use this for the exam? Okay, and I'll answer this primary question for you when we start. Let's begin. I want to first take your attention to what has changed in the coal sector. Okay, I've referred to a website called PRS, and I've looked at some important points of the Mineral Laws Amendment Act of 2020. This is an act, and it has been passed. Let me quickly run through some important provisions so that you understand where all of this is coming from. Everything that we are discussing here, okay, somewhere has an origin here or in the laws that we're talking about. So let's see. What does this amendment amend? It amends the Mines and Minerals Act of 1957, Mine and Minerals Development Regulation Act. It's popularly called MMDR. And the Coal Mines Special Provision Act of 2015, the CMSP. This was particularly enacted after the coal scam for, let us say, a more institutional, a more formal, and a more transparent way to mine India. So let's see what it is. The MMDR Act regulates the overall mining sector in the country, and the CMSP Act provides for the auction and allocation of mines whose allocation was cancelled by the Supreme Court in 2014. What happened in 2014? The coal scam. And the Supreme Court had directed the Coal Ministry to cancel all allocations that they had made in the furtherance of this judgment. Okay? Then, companies will be allowed to carry on coal mining operation for own consumption, sale, or for any other purposes as specified by the government. Now, that's the point I'm trying to make. This is already in the law. What they're talking about here is just an extension of the law. Do you understand this? There isn't a lot that you have to worry. This has already been spoken about. Companies would be allowed to carry on coal mining operations for their own consumption, for sale, or for any other purposes as specified by central government. This automatically talks about something called captive mining. Clear? Now, the companies need not possess any prior coal mining experience in India in order to participate in the auction of coal and lignite, which means you don't need to have any prior experience. Keep an eye on this point and refer this point to this point. No eligibility conditions. Are you seeing? You're essentially furthering what the law already is. Okay, so don't worry about it. There's nothing that you need to particularly get hassled about. Okay. Third, the competitive bidding process for auction of coal and lignite blocks will not apply to mines considered for the allotment of a government company or its joint venture for own consumption, sale, or any other specified purpose. Or second, a company that has been awarded a power project on the basis of a competitive bid for a tariff block. Okay? Clear? Now, this point is far too technical. It basically talks about this idea of a competitive process for bidding, which was the larger problem with the coal scam. But the Supreme Court cancelled the licenses, cancelled the mining allocations because it was done on a preferential allotment. Okay? It was done on a preferential allotment. So you wanted to change the process from an individual allotment to a transparent, competitive, tender-like bidding process, which happens across most government contracts. Clear on this? Okay, so that's what the larger ecosystem was. Don't worry, I'll stitch all of this up together. Don't worry, just have some patience. Okay, Jitika, just refresh, you should be fine. Now, this act adds a new type of license. Remember, this license has been spoken about, called prospecting license cum mining license. This will be a composite license providing for both prospecting and mining activities, which means looking for mines and looking for potential areas and mining on those potential areas. Simple as that. The Act also talks about something called reconnaissance. Reconnaissance means preliminary prospecting of a mineral through certain surveys. Okay? The holders of such permit may apply for prospective license cum mining lease or mining lease. So the idea is a very simple one. The idea is, Santosh, a question in the question box, please. Okay? The idea is, you first need to get a reconnaissance, which is nothing but a preliminary license to broadly, to superficially look at areas. Once you have this license, then you can apply for a prospective license and a mining license, or just a prospective license. This has already been given in the law. There isn't something that you have to particularly worry about. Here, now, the prior approval of the central government will not be required in granting these licenses for coal and lignite in certain cases. These cases include where allocation is done by the central government and the mining block has been reserved to conserve a mineral, or the mining block has been reserved to conserve a mineral. This is why you would notice in the Panchayati Extension Scheduled Act, they get powers only on minor minerals, because the major minerals might be needed for a larger national purpose, for which you need to not worry about local permissions. Clear on this so far? Understood this? Simple enough? Okay. Yes? Now, this was about coals, and with coals, I'd like to talk to you about minerals as well, and then I'll put it on in a note structure for you. Okay? What do they talk about? Again, very random, very blanket kind of things. They speak about introduction of a seamless composite exploration cum mining cum production regime, which is essentially allowing for individuals, for institutions to explore, to mine, and to then produce finished goods or processing goods after the mining process is over. It talks about 500 mining blocks which will be offered through an open and a transparent process. The number isn't important at all. Okay, clear on this, right? Now, they will introduce a joint auction of bauxite and coal mineral blocks to enhance the aluminium industry's competitiveness, will help the aluminium industry also reduce electricity costs. So the idea is the aluminium industry hugely depends on the mining of bauxite and also uses coal as a method of electricity thermal generation to finally produce aluminium. So when you allow for a joint auction of both of these, you are able to give the industry the raw material and the resource to ramp up production. That's all that it means, nothing more. Okay. It also removes the distinction between captive and non-captive mines to allow transfer of mining leases and sale of surplus used materials, leading to better efficiency in mining and production. So what it basically means is now you can, as a third party, sell your mining produce, sell it in the open market. You can transfer mining leases to somebody else. If you don't need what you have mined, you can sell it to somebody else, essentially making it a more vibrant sector. Okay, and we're looking at setting up a minerals index, which would mean which mineral is available in abundance, which is not available, what are the larger utility values available to a mineral, and things like that. And of course, rationalization basically means lessening of stamp duties so that it becomes more affordable. Okay. Now, all of this is done. Let's get to the important part. Please listen to me carefully. Okay, I'll come to the sources. I need a first page. We're discussing about coal and minerals. Okay, both of these are largely used in two areas. In the point of the exam, it's being used in two areas. Okay, one, you're looking at it as an industry. Second, you're looking at it from a geography, natural resources kind of perspective. So what you have to do is make a consolidated note which will take care of both geography as well as industry. Okay, both geography as well as industry. Okay, and when we look at industry, where is the utility of coal or minerals for that matter? They're specific industries. Second, your energy industries. Correct? It is a source for energy. Now, clear on this? Simple enough. So when you look at this, you look at 3 points that you have to cover. Okay. First, stuff which is related to the geography of it, which is types of coal, anthracite, bituminous, coking, non-coking, those things. Availability of coal, where is coal found, the dimensions to why are coal blocks found in a specific area, the properties of coal mining, stuff like that. So these are the two things. Okay, properties of coal and availability of coal. This takes care of the geography part of things. Then you come to the second and the third stage, which is your industry governance, paper 1, paper 2, paper 3, where you look at the energy industry and you look at specific industries. Clear? This is the objective we want to achieve. So how are we going to go about it? What should your note look like? Okay, you will divide your note into two. You will divide your note into two parts: part 1 and part 2. Part 1 you will strictly keep for geography. Okay, it will have two parts, as I said: properties and availability. Clear? Okay. Now comes the second part. The second part is largely to do with the mains, which is your industry segment for this. So how do you go about this? Introduction, body, and conclusion. Your introduction should have the following points. One of the points gets picked up from availability itself. You give me some heart-wrenching, some hitting data on coal. That India is the nth coal producer of the world. We produce on an average of this many tons. Our potential is this. Or India is a coal-dependent nation. Do we need to import? Do we not need to import? Things like that. That's the first part. Then you can tell me in one line the broad utility of coal, right? The broad utility. The coal is an instrumental element towards utility in other sectors. The second point. Okay? And third, you can put some amount of context. It has witnessed a nationwide scam in terms of allotment and has also seen nationalization as an early policy of the government. So, nationalization and a major scam in terms of allotment. हो गया introduction. बस simple on this. 3 lines, clear, simple. Now, whatever you remember, wherever you remember, done. Now come to the body. The best way to do any sector-based question is to simply pick out the people involved in the sector, the stakeholders of the sector. We are now talking about the coal industry. Okay? So what do we need to do? What is the larger problem? Clear. What are your broad themes or your stakeholders involved? Okay? Simple. Exploration / mining of coal. That's number 1. Number 2, the role of the private sector in coal, enhancing it. And third, the role of the government in coal. That's all there is. भाई कोल सेक्टर में क्या है? सीधी बात, ढूंढना है, बनाना है और बेचना है. यही है. Find coal, mine coal, sell coal. That's the basic idea. Find coal, mine coal, sell coal. Clear? Each of these you can explain. Subpoints, subpoint 1, 1.1, 1.2. What are your broad problems? Okay. Then conclusion would be solutions to 1, 2 and 3. बस हो गया. क्लियर ऑन दिस? समझ में आ गया? बस अब खुद ही बताओ, पूरा प्री और पूरा मेंस मिला के, add all of pre, add all of mains, will there be a question out of these notes for you? No. Clear? Okay. So environmental impacts will come under exploration issues. Yes. Your legal provisions, Mining Act, will come under exploration issues. Privatization will come under this issue. Nationalization and entry or larger stakeholders of the government will come under this issue. Clear? Okay. So introduction, some broad data point on coal. Second, a broad line on the utility of coal. And third, a perspective. I'm giving you the sources. Just hold on. I haven't done yet. Okay. So third, the nationalization that India has witnessed nationalization of coal, and of course has also experienced a scam in terms of its allotment. समझ में आया? Then your 3 headings: explorations, role of the private sector, the role of the government. Tell the problems under these headings, and then you can tell the solutions. So 1.1 would be, how do we do it currently? 1.2 would be, where is the problem? the solution would be 1, 2, and 3 in the conclusion. So each of these headings will have two subpoints, 1.1, 1.2. First is how do we do it currently and what is the problem. बस हो गया और कुछ नहीं चाहिए, खत्म. ठीक है, क्लियर ऑन दिस. ठीक है, अब देखो जो ये, नाउ पे अटेंशन, this, if you see the first points, the first point of data, the first point of how do we do it, what is the role of the private sector and what is the role of the government is pre, and everything is pre plus means. बन गया? Clear on this? Understood? Yes or no? ठीक है. Now let me take you to the sources. बहुत ध्यान से सुनना. I'll just simplify it for you. जितना भी ये development, governance, sectoral change, Niti Aayog has been very kind to us, very kind to us by coming up with something called India at 75. This is a document I would expect all of you to have saved on your devices. The reason I'm telling you is this document is basically model answers for this exam. Okay? It tells you every sector from transport, communication, aviation, minerals, energy, health, education, civil infrastructure, defense infrastructure, everything. It tells you why is it important, what is the current situation, what are the problems, and what can be the broad solutions. इससे ज़्यादा एग्जाम में क्या चाहिए? Clear on this? ठीक है? So, chapter number 11, India at 75, for those who are appearing this year as well as next year. ठीक है? Chapter number 12, India at 75, for those who are appearing this year as well as next year. इसमें क्या है? इसमें minerals is chapter 11 and energy is chapter 12. ठीक है? Clear on this? अब मैंने क्या बोला था आपको? ये डेटा कहां से आएगा? ये डेटा आता है बेटा इकोनॉमिक सर्वे से. Now this is only for those who are appearing in the 2021 attempt. For those who are appearing in the 2021 attempt, you will use next year's economic survey. Chapter number 8, Industry and Infrastructure. Even in 2021, the second volume of the economic surveys, chapter number 8, will be Industry and Infrastructure. This does not change. The second volume of the economic survey, the content is always, the layout of the content is the same. They update the data. The first volume is where they pick up editorial kind of issues. So, page number 228, para 8.16, you will see the heading coal. Clear? Understood this? Simple enough? Clear? बस आंसर रेडी है, सोर्स रेडी है, डेटा रेडी है, बात खत्म, सब हो गया. समझ में आया? Now, for example, 2 months later, they come up with privatization of coal policy. बस ऐड कर देना यहाँ पे, and add it with a different ink, so you will know that it has been updated in current affairs. ना आपको मेरी जरूरत है, फिर आपको लगेगा तो खुद हो जाएगा. Clear on this? Understood this? Simple? Clear? Okay? Understood? Simple enough? Good. ठीक है? So ऐसे करना है. Which basically means you will spend this week preparing this. एक बार की मेहनत है, then you are ready. Then you don't get crazy, you don't go bonkers every time you see news about the coal sector. Clear on this? This is the idea. Is to just, I get so perturbed when I see the drama around answer writing, I see the drama around current affairs. Hey, nahi. Clear on this? Okay? No more question in the question box, please. ठीक है? समझ गए? Understood? Good. ठीक है, हो गया, डन. All right. Now we move to defense. ठीक है, I'll pick up your questions towards the end. Let's pick up defense. ठीक है, अब देखो डिफेंस में कैसे करेंगे, सेम वही करेंगे जो कोल में किया वो हम डिफेंस में भी करेंगे. ठीक है, the only problem is defense में it's not easy to find solutions, to find sources. I've given you the sources in the class itself, so just see. Okay. What is our objective? To figure out, put everything in one place. Defense. India is the third largest armed forces and the 10th largest defense spender in the world. You don't find this data easily, very accurately, so I picked it up so that for your data column, you have this. We'll come back to this. Basically, तीन चीजें बोलनी: production, management, investment. ठीक है, production, management, investment. आप चाहो तो, now they didn't use these terms, they went on some self-reliance tangent. You can use these three headings as your headings in any answer on defense policy also, or defense production policy also. Okay, when we talk about defense as a sector, we're talking about defense as an industrial sector. हम national security की बात नहीं कर रहे, हम इंडिया पाकिस्तान, इंडिया अफगानिस्तान, इंडिया उसकी बात नहीं कर रहे, हम डिफेंस इंडस्ट्री की बात कर रहे हैं. Clear? So we'll look at production. What are we talking about? Hold your horses, we'll cover everything. Indigenization of imported spares, मतलब जो Bofore है, Bofore का nut bolt. There's a nut bolt that has to be fixed in Bofore. Now that nut bolt which has to be fixed in Bofore is going to take a long time. So what do? We might as well fix the nut bolt. We manufacture the nut bolt in India only. Otherwise, you'll have to pay so much money to just get nut bolt. That's the first point. Second, separate budget provisioning for domestic capital procurement, which means in our budgets from now onwards, we would like to keep a separate amount for acquiring capital that might be needed to scale up defense production. Okay? Third, to boost trade, to boost production, we will ban the import of select weapons or platforms. We'll do this on a year-by-year basis. The list will come out. That's the idea. It's basically saying कि आप import कर ही नहीं सकते. This is license Raj in reverse. Do you understand this? This is basically license Raj in reverse. कि बॉस आपको इंडिया में बनाना है, अच्छा लगे बुरा लगे इंडिया में बनाना है. Clear on this? That's the idea. Simple enough. Don't complicate it. Exam doesn't ask the complication of it. Okay, Harshvardhan is basically providing for a budget which would be used to get higher capital for domestic capital procurement. Okay, next is management. Corporatization of the Ordnance Factory Board. ये ध्यान रखना, this is ORDNANC. Most answers that I correct, you will usually see ordinance. ये गलत है, इसमें एग्जामिनर मार्क्स काट लेगा. This is a temporary law in the absence of the parliament. This is the Arms and Ammunition Division. Remember this. This is a very common spelling mistake I see in the answers. Don't do this. Okay? So the idea is so the idea is ordnance is what happens is there's something called the Ordnance Factory Board. The Ordnance Factory Board is the one which says, हाँ मुझे इतना गन चाहिए, इतना ammunition चाहिए, मैं यहाँ से बनाना चाहता हूँ, and all of those things. No, it's not included in the share market at the moment. ठीक है? Clear? It's essentially like it's a requisition arm for the forces. ठीक है? So we want to make it more corporatized, which means you will have experts, you will have designated officers, you will have like a PSU, you will have a management director, you will have, a CEO, you will have a financial officer, so that you don't just look at it as a touch and go basis. क्या होता है? We have something in the UPSC also, you would have seen, you have something called the Indian Ordnance Services, है ना? Indian Ordnance Factories services है, वो civil services से भी recruit होते हैं, and they're also recruited through the engineering services exam, which right now of course is a question mark. ठीक है? Yes. So these guys ये लोग क्या करते हैं? The UPSC guys, you guys who clear it and get the ordnance services, you guys are managers in an ordnance factory, and the Engineering services guys are the technical managers in an ordnance factory. तो लेबर आपके पास आता है, मशीनरी इनके पास आता है. That's the basic difference. So what we want to do is we want to put it all together so that we are able to run it better. ठीक है, तो corporatization करना चाहते हैं for the ordnance factory board. This is the same thing as the railway board, etc., etc. The apex body deciding, it is like the RBI of the ordnance sector. कि हम बताएंगे कि कितना गन, कितना असला, कितना बारूद चाहिए. Okay, clear? Then you see the time-bound defense procurement process. That what usually happens is the stages and the channels, Ministry of Finance is also involved, Ministry of Defense is also involved, then the army headquarters are also involved. Then it gets very complicated. Depending on the size of contract, you have different hierarchies of permission. Ki defense minister can sanction X amount, finance minister can sanction X amount, and things like this. Okay? So you want to make it a time-bound setup. Ki bas ho gaya. Okay? And third, the more glamorous point that has been mentioned is FDI in the automatic route will be raised from 49% to 74%. Okay? From 49% to 74%. FDI मतलब बाहर के आते हैं, सेक्टर में इन्वेस्ट करते हैं, सेक्टर में, स्टॉक मार्केट में नहीं. Automatic matlab you do not need specific permissions every time you are entering into a sector. For about 74% of investment into a defense firm, you can do it. You do not require a specific permission. That's what is called automatic route. Yehi hota hai na? There's something called an automatic route. There's something called an approvals route. Approvals route मतलब जब invest करोगे तो सरकार से clearance लेना पड़ेगा. Automatic अच्छा ठीक है आ जाओ बाद में देख लेंगे. Clear on this? Okay. The advantage of corporatization is that you will have more efficiency. It will be run like a company. It will be run like an organization. Clear? Yes. Apple's news. Yes. ठीक है? Clear? Up. ये important है. Now pay attention. What I've done for you here is I've given you a full answer on the defense procurement. Right? Okay. The context is we've just released the draft defense procurement procedure. It's currently waiting for suggestions from the public before it is finalized. Much like the national education policy, things like that. So it's that. Context kya hai? Context dekhiye. And you'll see how I've already headlined problem, solution. And the problem is you don't find this in most places. So I'll give you the source of this. This is a slightly technical source. There is a brilliant think tank called Observer Research Foundation. Okay? ORF. They in April had written about this. Okay, and second, there is a law firm called Nishit Desai and Associates, which advise clients in defense manufacturing. So they had released a policy paper on this. So I have taken some information from them. ये usually मिल नहीं पाती है, तो मैंने आपको दे दी, तो आपको दिक्कत नहीं होगी. You don't have to look anywhere else. Okay. So what is the context? This is my sources. I've clearly told you my sources. Okay. Now. The Ministry of Defense recently released the Draft Defense Procurement Procedure 2020. The new draft amends existing military procurement rules in line with government's long-running targets to boost indigenous, which means homemade, defense capability and reduce reliance on imports under Make in India. Okay? Two sources, Observer Research Foundation and a paper released by Nishit Desai and Associates. It's a law firm. You don't need to know the second one. Pehla bhi kar lo to bahut hai. ठीक है? So this is the context. This context is also more than enough for your introduction. ठीक है? अब ध्यान दो. Point 1, line 1, line 2 and line 3. Do you see line 3? India is the largest armed forces and 10th largest defense spender in the world. Dig gaya ye? Yes. So this is line number 3. Okay. Clear on this? Okay, all right. Key features and analysis बताऊंगा आपको. Problem, solution, problem, solution. First is ये indigenization. ठीक है, indigenization is the very idea of making it at home. What do we talk about? It proposes higher levels of local content, new multipliers in defense offsets, which means multiple players, a procurement category for leasing, which means now आप भाड़े पे ले सकते हो gun, or you can take it on rent, and new options for equipment sustainment activity. It attempts to better the 2016 version of the draft. 2020 से पहले 2016 में आई थी. ठीक है? Now, the intent of the new defense procurement policy is to further promote indigenous design capacity and higher localization, both of which, if implemented effectively, could potentially increase the role of the domestic industry, especially in the private sector, in defense production. What happens in India is the private sector needs to take an industrial license under the Factories Act to actually manufacture arms and ammunition. These are the legal ones I'm talking about. ये कट्टे वट्टे की बात नहीं कर रहा हूँ मैं, को कट्टा घर में बैठ के बना रहा था. It's not defense procurement. Okay, we're talking about legitimate manufacturing of arms. Clear on this? So the idea is basically improve your capacity so that domestic industry grow कर जाए. ठीक है, fancy word में लिखा है because I've taken it directly from the draft. Simple enough that you want more production. ठीक है. Now, बहुत ध्यान से देखिए. The most preferred category to process different defense procurement, it's called by IDDM, Indian Indigenously Designed Development and Manufactured. Indian Indigenously Designed Development and Manufactured towers over and above categories in preference. Under this category, it is proposed that any order, any defense contract will have at least 50% indigenous content if the design is indigenous in addition to development and manufacture. कि मतलब कम से कम 50% उसका content, उसका development, उसका manufacture domestically होना चाहिए. If it comes under this, then it comes under this large policy. There's a second category, by Indian category, where indigenous design and manufacture, but development बाहर से हो सकता है. ठीक है? The required percentage of indigenous content will be 50% or 60% if the product has not been designed or developed indigenously, which basically means if the product has not been designed in India or developed in India, तो 60% इंडिया में बनना चाहिए. अगर डिजाइंड है तो 50% इंडिया में बनना चाहिए. Clear on this? That's the basic explanation. Analysis क्या है? It does not make provisions to analyze or compare the costs and the consequential potential decrease in output delivered in implementing such high levels of indigenous content on platforms. ठीक है? It does not give you enough provisions to understand ये बहुत महंगा होने वाला है. This is going to get expensive. ठीक है? Second, indigenization is about reducing dependency and increasing India's capability to meet its own security needs. सीधी बात है कि घर में बनाएंगे खुद को सिक्योर रखेंगे. However, India lacks core subsystems, manufacturing capability, production expertise, resulting in many of the systems being developed and produced for the first time in India. ठीक है? This MOD continues to falter in this aspect in its myopic pursuit. Boss, जब तक इंडस्ट्री नहीं है, टेक्नोलॉजी नहीं है, टैलेंट नहीं है, technical expertise is not there, then how will you produce domestically? That's the explanation. So consequently, what happens is the history of indigenous development in India is replete with examples of mismanagement, time delays, late stage modifications, and cost escalations. अभी कुछ एग्जांपल्स दे देता हूँ. लाइट कॉम्बैट एयरक्राफ्ट जो हिंदुस्तान एरोनॉटिक्स बना रहा है, Arjun main battle tank, the air independent propulsion systems for the Indian Navy Scorpion submarines, the acquisition of a weapons locating radar for the army before Kargil. They all form a large point of risks which are associated with the development systems and platforms afresh. मतलब ये पंगे चल रहे हैं. Now इतना complex है. How do you simplify this? Don't worry, once I'm done with all the points, I will simplify it for you. Don't worry. सेकेंड प्रॉब्लम लीजिंग. एक तो था बनाएंगे कैसे, दूसरा क्या है भाड़े पे कैसे लेके आ. देखो, introduced in this is another category of acquisition called buy and make in acquisition templates for the first time. ठीक है, ये in addition to buy and make ये हम नया लेके आए हैं. Equipment or platforms may be rented, leased from defense firms or countries rather than purchased for ownership by the armed forces. Okay, firms would enter into a long-term or medium-term contracts offering to provide a guaranteed number of operationally available frontline equipment on a daily basis, with the contractor responsible for maintenance and repair for the duration of the contract. इसका मतलब आर्मी ने टैंक भाड़े पे लिया. ठीक है, we took it on rent. Now we took it from rent from company X. That company X will send a contractor with you, a service manager with you. होता है ना? Remember something called annual maintenance contracts? कुछ ऐसा ही. Annual maintenance contracts कि वो AC के साथ फ्री में आता है. प्रॉब्लम है तो वो मतलब फ्री में नहीं आता, मतलब the contractor comes and then they will take care of your ACs. ठीक है, प्रॉब्लम क्या है? Risk assessment would be a major challenge because when you're writing such contracts with the need to allow for use, destruction and replacement in both peace and conflicts. Boss, टूटेगा, बम गिरेगा, damage होगा, उसका क्या? Who's going to take care of those things, right? And then such options would need a thorough evaluation of benefits and costs of leasing versus an outright purchase. ये हमारा way forward हो गया, where the purchase option requires the armed forces to assume the responsibility for maintenance, repair and replace of equipment. ठीक है, clear on this? ठीक है, कई बार ऐसा भी हो सकता है कि वो बोलेंगे, आर्मी को बोलेंगे कि टैंक आप रिपेयर करो, you take care of the tank, it's not my problem. मैंने आपको टैंक भाड़े पे दे दिया. होता है ना, when we take houses on rent, our houses have ACs by the landlord. Landlord says whatever happens to the AC, you fix it. Don't come to us. Clear on this? ठीक है. The third and the last point. Sorry boys and girls, I'm taking some 5-10 minutes more. Please bear with me. This is important. This will sort you out for the year to come. Okay. Third is strategic partnerships. Okay. Partnerships in the manufacture of 4 programs. ये ध्यान दें 4 जगह पे. Fighter aircraft, helicopters, armored vehicles, which also include tanks by the way, and submarines can be done in collaboration with a domestic partner company in India. This is like a joint venture. A joint venture in these 4 areas. Now see, it continues to restrict foreign manufacturer stakes to 49%. अब इसको बढ़ा के कितना करा है हमने? How much are we looking at it now? 74%. Clear? Creating a plethora of issues around the willingness of these companies to share latest technologies to IPR issues. Latest technologies. So the burden of performance guarantees in terms of quality and timely deliveries on the foreign manufacturer owing a 49% stake while maintaining or mandating the Indian partner to be the prime contractor. अब क्या होगा? When 74% stake will be owned by the foreign company, तो वो खुल के करेगा कि ये लो टेक्नोलॉजी, ये लो मेरा मैन पावर, ये मेरा IPR, मेरे पास शेयर है. I have an ownership. I have a voting, I have a majority stake in the ecosystem. ठीक है? All right. Now, identifying key strategic capabilities or platforms and promoting the development of core competencies may be a more conservative and a risk approach in pursuing indigenous defense capabilities. ठीक है, which basically means you should identify areas where you need to develop core competencies. Just because बाहर वाले आके invest कर सकते हैं, इसका मतलब ये नहीं है that you just randomly start investing. You should see where do you need the kind of investment. ठीक है, and balancing costs and risks, equipping the armed forces with the items they desire the most, and sustaining a national industrial capability is more important given the fiscal climate. Fiscal climate मतलब कोविड. जितनी जरूरत है, what you really need, you must give. Clear on this? ठीक है. अब I'll give you the structure for this. कैसे करेंगे? Just you have your structure as defense. Again, just pay attention to this, you will understand. It is asked in two ways. एक तो specific advancements. In advancements, you look at new missiles or any new equipment that comes. है ना, कि अग्नि कितना दूर जाता है, land to air है, surface to air है, all of those things. Second, military exercises. Yes, these are the two parts that you often see in the larger context of defense. ये दोनों are used in the pre and the mains. You get direct questions on these and you use these as larger answers on national security, on foreign policy /IR. Then the second part is the industry part of defense. The industry part of defense, correct? कि बनाएं कैसे, right? Now, again, introduction, body, conclusion. Now, what do you do in introduction? In introduction, first, in introduction, some data on the defense sector. Thank you, Devansh. Some data on the defense sector. ठीक है, ठीक है, कि बताया था ना, India is the second largest, it is the third largest armed force and the 10th largest defense expenditure. Somebody said 7th largest employer. तो यहाँ पे वो data आ जाएगा. Clear on this? The data will come here first. ठीक है. Second, you can now mention some context. Before scam, मैंने आपको बताया था ना, some delay examples I've given you here. You see these delay examples? These examples can be used as context in the introduction. So from the Bofors scam to equipments to PPEs, clear on this? Rafael, yes, to delay in deliveries. The Indian defense industry requires immediate reform. Correct? Simple. अब देखो, defense है, industry है. What do you have to do? You have to look at three major points. 1, 2, 3. एक तो production, domestic production. Yes or no? Isn't that the same thing as indigenization? Domestic production. Second, global participation, which is the same thing as strategic partnerships. ठीक है. And third, alternate methods to production. उसमें आपका leasing आ जाएगा. Clear? You divide it into two parts. How do we do it currently? And what is the problem? And conclusion is solutions to 1, 2, and 3. Global participation would be strategic partnerships. Yes or no? Where from foreign countries are investing in the FDI or in the sector. Yes, बस कितना मुश्किल है? Yes or no? Clear on this? ठीक है? Yes. एक जगह बन गया. Wherever you see new items in the newspaper or your monthly magazines, यहाँ ऐड करते जाओ. ये एक broad structure बना के रख लो. Whenever you see things in the newspapers, just keep on adding with a different ink, and you have a ready-made structure for defense. ठीक है. But R&D will come under production only, ना? Better R&D leads to better production. Yes. Production क्या हमने discuss कर लिया. What are our larger problems? Our larger problems with production was कि हम चाह रहे हैं that we want to, how do we do it? We have the new defense procurement policy where we're looking at 60% and 50% rates. The problem is we don't have the ecosystem for it. We don't have the core sector for it. We don't have the capacity for it. Then you see the second point, global participation, that we want investment coming in from outside. So how are we doing it right now? We are currently doing it at 49%. We are now upgrading it to 74% because we want foreign companies to come in. So where is the problem? Yes, sharing technology is there. So we are now looking at 74%. Now, how will that help? The problem that we were facing was that foreign companies were not sharing their technology. They were not sharing their IPR with us. Clear. Third, alternate methods. Why do you have to buy when you can rent? And if you can rent at a cheaper cost, then you can save money. So we are providing for leasing facilities in the new policy. The problem is when we're looking at it, Shubham, just listen to the class, no? Huh? Okay. When you're looking at alternative methods, so you're looking at leasing for that exam, for that matter, and in that, okay, just hold on. Let me finish. Okay. All right. Satish Mishra, don't ever speak to somebody like that. Okay. You have no right to. हाँ? उसको नहीं समझ में आया, उसने पूछा, उसको पूछने दे, कोई दिक्कत नहीं है. Everybody has their own ask. They have the right to ask, no? Always, never ever speak impolitely to somebody. हाँ? गलत बात. Sorry बोलो शुभम को. Okay? ठीक है? Clear? So alternate methods. हम चाहते हैं कि we are looking at licensing now. The problem is we're looking at leasing now. The problem is liability किसके पास आएगी? The solution to this and this becomes your conclusion. Your introduction can have two parts: data on defense, that India is the third largest spender, the third largest army and the 10th largest spender, and India has seen major defense debacles in terms of procurement, such as Bofors, the Rafale, the delay in certain equipment and things like that. बन गया defense. बस कितना मुश्किल था? बस आसान. I give you my word. By the end of this week, I'll take classes every day. I will make sure आपके सारे notes ready हो जाए. ठीक है? ये मेरा promise है आपको. Clear on this? जरूरत पड़ेगा मैं हर दिन दूंगा, but I'll get this right. But you have to work hard with me. Which means you have to now go home today and you have to work on these two, defense and minerals. समझ में आया? Clear on this? Just simplifying it. ठीक है? Spend some time, because ये time नहीं मिलेगा. Because once September, I will upload all it. Once September, October starts, then current affairs actually starts becoming relevant. There's one more thing I wanted to talk about is वो ये था, खुद ही सोच के देखो. For this is for those of you who are appearing for the 2020 attempt. This is my honest advice. Don't worry about current affairs very much from March onwards. There's a reason behind this. The reason is why will the UPSC have a current heavy paper when candidates living in the non-metro parts of the country may not have access to technology like you do, and therefore can't have an access to newspapers. So मैं पहले से बोल रहा हूँ, the 2020 prelims paper will be very heavily reliant on static. ठीक है? मैं guarantee दे रहा हूँ 65% paper static होगा. So work accordingly. ठीक है? ये important है. Let me look at a couple of questions. I'll just take about 5 minutes of your time. Let me just see some very, very good questions. Ashi, I'll cover this when I discuss Rajya Sabha. Santosh, this is the new package. It's added up. So if you see the whole 20 lakh crore is adding up whatever has happened so far. I will upload it today. So Mandeep, this was added right from announcement of the lockdown. ठीक है. पीएम किसान योजना, ये अपना कल्याण योजना पैकेज, आरबीआई स्टिमुलस सब मिला के. All right, Maya, I will do that. Okay, Ritik, I'll answer your question. You sent me an email. Now I'll answer your question today itself over an email. Mansi, not needed. Don't need to cut articles yet. Just start organizing things. बेटा रेवेन्यू शेयरिंग मतलब मैंने आपको बोला कोल माइन कर, जिसको भी बेच रहा है उसका 20% दे देना. तला, डू यू अंडरस्टैंड दिस? सपोज आई एम द गवर्नमेंट, यू आर द कोल कंपनी. मैंने कहा ये ले माइन कर, जी ले अपनी जिंदगी, जितना भी बेचेगा 20% मेरे को देना. ओके, कैप्टिव माइनिंग इज नाउ एलिमिनेटेड and right now it has not been announced yet. Sonal, the larger answer on privatization I will discuss. We did not have a defined profit sharing mechanism. Okay. CBM will be done very selectively, because it has an environmental impact. So, okay. Terms of transfer not needed. Prospecting Akash is exploration. Anwar, it's repackaging. Right, Aishwarya, nothing. None of this, most of it will not be asked in the pre. None of these structural reforms will be asked. Okay. Geetika, I think August, September till about April. That's more than enough. ठीक है. No, we're not trying to consciously exhaust. We just need coal at the moment. Yes, Harshvardhan, but that's the larger argument. Harshvardhan has actually asked a very interesting question. So Harshvardhan has asked a question. He says, "Sir, ये सब तो ठीक है, but हम ये क्यों कर रहे हैं? अभी हमको इसकी क्या? Why are we doing this now? There is so much more that can be done. Why are we doing this now?" यार, welcome to government. हाँ यार, Devansh does. Okay, Ishan. पॉलिटी मैंने स्टार्ट करा हुआ है. वो यूट्यूब पे मैं शाम तक डाल दूंगा. एडिट हो रहा था. ठीक है, हो जाएगा. बहुत टाइम. स्कैन अलॉटमेंट एग्जाम के लिए इंपॉर्टेंट नहीं होता है. वो एक लाइन लिखना होता है बस. हाँ, ऐसा हुआ था. टुडे ऑनवर्ड्स जान, डोंट वरी. Shri, I will teach you a scheme tomorrow. I will teach you the answer structure for scheme. It's very easy. It's very simple. ठीक है? Okay. I will check. Yeah, Rishabh, you can make your notes in digital formats also. Yeah? No problem at all. I make my notes on a digital format, but I write digitally. So, because people like to create hue and cry, ऊपर अब क्या कर सकते हैं? ठीक है? Okay. Both. Okay. Utkarsh, it's not necessarily logical to buy because, boss, the costs are very, very high. And whatever we usually get is not the cream of the market. By the time we receive it, the defense industry has progressed. Obsolete technologies can also be shared, obviously. Not really, Rahul. Let me just go through the compilation, the articulate, Vajiram, Rao, whatever, insights, forum. Just one is more than enough. The conclusion is the solution to the problem. That's why it's substantive. आ जाएंगे पॉलिटिविटी भाई लोग. Shobit, why will they ask you a 1500 word question on defense? उसमें फिर 10 चीजें और हो जाती है ना कि डिफेंस में आप मिलिट्री एक्सरसाइजेस के बारे में भी लिखोगे, एक डिफेंस एक्सरसाइजेस के बारे में भी लिखोगे, देन यू विल टॉक अबाउट डिफेंस रिफॉर्म जनरली इन नेचर, तो यू कैन इजीली राइट 1500 वर्ड्स. हाँ, वादियाम रिसाइटल ऑनलाइन आता है, यू कैन टेक अप टुडे ऑनवर्ड्स. यस गौरव. हाँ, 2021 prelims will not happen before August. ठीक है, clear? Okay, see you guys tomorrow at 12:30. I will create the class and I will share the class link with you tomorrow. I'll share the class link with you on Telegram, but tomorrow I'll see you guys at 12:30. We'll cover the rest of the sectors also. ठीक है, समझ में आया? Good. ऐसे पढ़ना है, अच्छे से पढ़ना है, टाइम है, इसको यूज करना है, एंड वी हैव टू स्टार्ट. ठीक है, सी यू गाइस, बाय बाय, हैव अ गुड डे, हैव अ ग्रेट वीक, मोर पावर टू यू. सी यू, बाय, थैंक यू संतोष, थैंक्स, बाय बाय, बाय बाय, बाय बाय, टाटा.